Hi folks, Guy from Midwinter Minis here. Welcome to my Blackstone Fortress speed painting series. The aim of these videos will be to get the models that come with the Warhammer Quest Blackstone Fortress game painted up quickly but effectively and using a limited paint selection. These videos will be aimed at newcomers to the hobby, but hopefully even long-time players and painters will learn a few tips and tricks. In this introduction video, we'll cover the basics, get your models built and ready to play the game. The first thing you'll want to do is sand down the top of all the bases provided using a file. A nail file will do just fine. Now this may seem like a bit of a weird step, but it'll make sense soon. Next, you'll want to follow the supplied assembly manual and build the models. I won't go through this step by step as this video would be hours long, but here are a few pointers that will make things easier down the line. When removing delicate parts, make sure not to cut too close to the model on the sprue. Instead, try to cut a millimetre or two away from the model and trim it down using a sharp hobby knife once it's off the sprue. This will stop things bending and breaking and ruining your models before you even begin. Another important step that's very tempting to skip is to remove the obvious mould lines. It's an easy process. Simply run the backside of your hobby knife blade gently across the line a few times and you're done. But it can obviously be a bit intimidating when you've got hundreds of pieces to examine and clean up, so to save your sanity I would recommend only worrying about the obvious visible lines. They'll be most obvious on things like heads, robes and smooth armour plates, so be tactical and only remove what's necessary and visible from normal viewing angles. Once you're done, you'll have the best Games Workshop push-fit models ever made, ready for paint and ready to play. Well, maybe second best. This lot took me a good few hours, but 4 or 5 stuff you should know podcasts and a bottle of wine later and I was good to go. Now we'll take a look at the paints and materials we'll be using in this series. First, you'll want to grab yourself at least one spray primer. I'll be using white and grey primers. This is essential for making your paint jobs more durable, quickly setting the right tone for each model and helping the paint adhere to its surface. To speed up a few of the models, I'll also be using a matte black spray. For paints, we'll be using the same 14 acrylic paint colours for all 44 models. I know a lot of people may be experiencing tabletop miniatures and painting for the first time with an all-in-one game like Blackstone Fortress, and the idea of spending the same amount of money you just spent on the game to buy paints is a bit off-putting, so we'll be keeping things nice and simple. The paints we'll use are black, white, a medium grey, a rich red, a mid-brown, a deep purple, a medium green, a bright yellow, a flesh tone, a medium blue, a gunmetal silver, a deep gold, a black shade wash, and a brown shade wash. If you'd like some recommendations for paints, check the description in the video. I've included 2 or 3 paint brands for every colour. Now if you're just starting out in miniature painting, take a look at some of the great starter sets from Vallejo and Army Painter. They give a pretty good discount over individual paints and come in handy dropper bottles, which is useful for controlling the paint ratios when mixing colours. I'd like to recommend Citadel colours from Games Workshop, but it's tricky. The paints are top notch, but their poorly designed bottles make them dry out really quickly, so don't expect more than a year or 2 out of them. You'll also need a few brushes. One standard modelling brush for base coating and applying shades and washes, one raggedy old brush that we'll use for dry brushing, and one fine tip detail brush for the odd delicate detail here and there, but don't worry, there won't be many of these. You'll also want a little palette to work from. It doesn't have to be a dirty artist palette like mine, it could just be something as simple as a tile, a piece of packing plastic or an old dish. Another thing you'll need is some matte Mod Podge. This is a great little hobby tool for varnishing and smoothing textures and we'll be using it on the bases. In fact, this is a great place to start once your models are assembled. Squirt a little Mod Podge onto your palette and using your standard brush, apply it to the sanded surfaces of all your model's bases. Do this for all 44 models and leave them to dry. Make sure to clean your brush thoroughly after this step. As you can see, this has hugely reduced the surface texture of the bases that the models come with and given it a smoother surface. Here it is next to an untreated base. Now don't worry about the little divots in the centre of the bases or the little gaps at the edges of the slaughter bases, we'll deal with those later. For now, your models are ready to paint. The final item you'll need is some matte varnish to protect your finished paint jobs, but we're obviously pretty far from that step now. In the next episode, I'll show you how to speed paint the 4 ghoul models. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Know someone that just got Blackstone Fortress? Well, share this video with them. I'm sure they'll find it helpful, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.